I hope that you are well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 6 English lesson on Thesaurus entries. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of language arts, grade 6. Once we have selected the subject of language arts, grade 6, and then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of Thesaurus skills. All right, so our chapter is Thesaurus skills. Our subject is English language arts, grade 6. And the lessons that we are going to be focusing on today under the chapter of Thesaurus skills is to use Thesaurus entries. All right. So when it comes to thesaurus skills, right? A thesaurus, it lists synonyms. So a thesaurus, of course, is like a book similar to a dictionary, right? And if we were to compare, let's say, a thesaurus to a dictionary, then the dictionary, a dictionary is it basically gives us the word as well as the definitions of that specific word, right? But now we have a thesaurus. We're specifically speaking about the thesaurus skills, right? And thesaurus skills is it lists synonyms, and synonyms are words which either have the same meaning or it almost has the same meaning, right? So it also gives you a specific word, right? Let's say if you want to look up a certain word, it gives you of a brief definition of the meaning of that word. They'll also tell you the part of speech, right? And then it lists the synonyms of those words. It will literally list all of the synonyms of those words, of that specific word. They will also basically even tell you how you can use that specific word. Because remember, if a thesaurus lists your synonyms, right, then as much as synonyms are words with the same meaning, remember it's not always words with directly the same meaning. It can also be words with almost the same meaning. So you have a list of words which means the same or almost means the same, right? So once again, a thesaurus, it lists synonyms, right? So it gives us a list of synonyms, or it lists synonyms, and synonyms are words with the same meaning, or it's words with almost the same meaning. Also, when it comes to the thesaurus, right? I think the advantage of the list of synonyms that it gives you, right? Because remember, we said synonyms are either words with the same meaning or almost the same meaning. And I think the advantage of the a list of synonyms is because is if you have, let's say, a word, and it's a word that you're not familiar with, so you even have the meaning of this word, and for some reason it still doesn't make sense, right? Now you can have a list of synonyms, right? And I'm sure at least one of those words will at least give you an idea of, like, oh, okay, so this word actually means that. You understand? So there's at least maybe one word or one or two words of that list of synonyms, right? That means either the same or almost the same as the meaning of the word, or let's say the word that is not familiar to you, right? So then that synonyms, or the list of synonyms, it can help you to understand, let's say, the meaning of that word even better. All right, so if we look at this example over here of a synonym, right? Of one of the thesaurus entries. Here we have the here we have the meaning, the word partial. So they gave us the word partial, right? And usually, what they do with the thesaurus entries is they give you the part of speech. So they will either tell you if it's a verb, if it's a noun, if it's an adjective, an adverb, or so on, right? So then you can also like have some form of idea of, okay, this is actually a describing word, this is actually a doing word, or so on, right? So in this case, the part of speech, it is an adjective. An adjective, it either tells us about the noun or it modifies the noun, right? That's an adjective. So our word is partial. The part of speech, it is an adjective. And the definition of this word, remember I said it just gives you like a brief definition. So partial means favoring one side over another. That is the definition. It's like we are favoring one side over another. And then we have our synonyms, right? Of course, this is just an example, so they will give us like a few synonyms, but usually within a thesaurus, right, you will have like a list of synonyms. Sometimes you'll even find like 10 synonyms in there. So the synonyms of partial is it's biased, means it's one-sided, or unfair, right? That is what partial mean. So even if you did not know what partial mean, right, at least the word one-sided or unfair will give you an idea of what we are actually talking about. All right, and now we need to say which is an example of being partial. An example of being partial, right? And an example of being partial is when a boss is promoting the person she likes best, right? They haven't even seen the other people's abilities. It's just that this boss is promoting the person that she likes even more, right? And that is what you find in a lot of workplaces, and you also find that in a lot of friendships, even. So partial means it is just one-sided, it is unfair. So in this case, we can even say that a boss promoting the person that she likes best is quite unfair, right? It is unfair towards people or towards the others who are working hard to get the promotion or who has basically been there like for, let's say, for years and have been proving themselves. Which means that partial, it's favoring one side over another. And remember, we said that if a word is unfamiliar, if a word is not familiar to you, so if you were to look at the word partial and you weren't familiar with the word partial, right, then the synonyms, right, it can help you to understand it better. It helps you to understand it better. And that is why we even have words like, if you don't know what bias is, then at least, if you look at the word one-sided or if you look at the word unfair, now you have an idea of what partial is. So it means that it is unfair. And now you have a better understanding of what partial actually means. We can say this favoritism also. We can say it's favoritism because you do have favoritism in workplaces, you have favoritism in schools, you have favoritism in friendships, or basically, literally, we have favoritism all over, right? So the same with partial. You can say it is favoritism because favoritism is unfair because you are favoring somebody over the others. It's just a one-sided thing, right? The same with favoritism. It's a one-sided thing. You're only doing for the one, but you're not doing for the other. So we can say that it is favoritism. But that is why I'm also saying, like, if you were to look in the actual Thesaurus book, right? Then if we were to look up a certain word, you will get a list of synonyms, right? Yeah, because it's an example, they're only listing 3, but you will have a list of synonyms, sometimes up to 10, right? So I'm sure favoritism is also in there, or it should be in there, or we will add it in there. All right. So basically, partial, it is favoring one side over another, which you said it's favoritism, favoring, yes, right? And our synonyms are biased, one sided, unfair. All right. Oopsie. If we look at another example, right? We look at 2 more examples. We need to look at this thesaurus entry, duplicate, duplicate. So I'm not sure if you heard the word duplicate already, but duplicate is our word. Duplicate is a verb, it's an action, right? And the definition of duplicate is to copy. And as you can see, right, with the thesaurus, the definition, they don't give you long definitions, right? They only give you like a brief definition, right? So it is to copy. And the synonyms of duplicate is to double, it's to remake, or to reproduce, right? That is what duplicate means. So it is double, remake, or reproduce. That is what duplicate means. So now it says the question is, which would you duplicate, or which would duplicate something? So which would duplicate something, right? Our definition is a copy. So which means that something that would duplicate something, or which would duplicate something, is when making a photocopy of a document. So if you're making a photocopy of a document, right? Then it means that you are duplicating that thing. You are basically doubling that thing. You are remaking that thing. That is duplicate. When you're making a copy of the same thing. Duplicate can also be where it's let's say a structure that you're also making, right? So it doesn't have to specifically be a photocopy of a document, but it can be a photocopy of something. Because even a sculpture, if you draw, let's say if you make a sculpture or build a sculpture or sculpt a sculpture, right? That's the same as the previous one, then it is a double. There's not two of the same. It's a double. It was a remake of something, right? And that is that we call duplicate. And duplicate is a verb, it's an action, it is something that we are doing. We are photocopying something. We are trying to double this thing. We are trying to copy this thing. We are remaking this thing. We are reproducing something, right? So that is duplicate. And even if you did not know what duplicate is, because remember we said that if a word is not familiar to you, then you can look at the other synonyms, right? And the other synonyms will then help you to understand what the meaning of that word is. So, like we say, if you did not know what duplicate is, or if duplicate is too big, then, oh, okay, it is to double something, or it is the double of something. Oh, it is to remake something. Now you have a more better understanding of what duplicate is. It's to remake something. It's to reproduce. It's to double. And if we look at the word right, that's the prefix that's in front of that word, then means again. So remake, it means that it's to make it again. Reproduce, it's to produce something again. Right? All right. Now we're going on to the last example that we have, right? We have the word brawl. It's a brawl, right? And the part of speech is it is a noun. So brawl is a noun. And the definition of a brawl is it's an altercation. So if you have an altercation with someone, they can say that you were in a brawl. And the synonyms of this word is it's to clash, it's having a dispute, it's having a melee. Never heard of that word. It's to have a scuffle, or to have a skirmish. Never heard of that one. So have you heard melee or skirmish? Have you heard of those words already? But remember, the whole aim of the synonyms is for you to be able to identify at least one or two of the words that make sense to you, right? Because remember, if the word brawl seems too complicated, you've never heard that word, right? So it's unfamiliar to you, it's not familiar to you. Then if you look at the synonyms, clash, dispute, melee, scuffle, skirmish, now at least one or two of those words will give you an idea of what brawl means. Is Fortnite a movie? Is it a series? So now the question is, what is a brawl? And a brawl is a physical fight. Usually they say people have a brawl. They usually make examples of it when people go to a bar and they start fighting in the alley, or they start having some form of dispute or scuffle in an alley next to a bar or something, right? Then they usually call that a brawl when drunk people are having a fight. right? That is usually what they call it. But the brawl is basically a physical fight. It's an altercation that you're having with another person. You're having some form of dispute. There's some pushing and pulling going on. So we are in a scuffle, right? So that is a brawl. If we look at the word melee, right? Melee definition, this one over here, because I've never heard this one neither. Melee is a confused fight or a scuffle. It's like a confused crowd of people. So usually a melee is, I think, the way the way I read it or the way I interpret the word melee, if it's a confused fight or scuffle, then it's usually, let's say, if people have a fight in a bar. If people have a fight in the bar, then there's people around them that always also gets hurt. So you're confused, like, hey, bro, I was just standing here. Like I did nothing, and yet I was also part of the scuffle, the pushing and pulling in the fights. And if you look at the word skirmish, because I've also never heard of the word skirmish, and they say the meaning of the word skirmish, right, is it's an episode of irregular or unpremeditated fighting, especially between small or outlying parts of armies or fleets. So it's like an unpremeditated fighting. Right? So it's fighting, it's like a battle, it's like a clash that you have. Right? So that is skirmish. All right. So once again, when it comes to thesaurus entries or it comes to thesaurus, like thesaurus skills, right? Remember, we look at the differences between a dictionary and a thesaurus. A dictionary, it gives us a list of the meaning of the words, right? You have a list of words with its meanings, right? So if there's more than one meaning to that word, they will write it down. So now you have maybe two or three meanings of that one specific word. But a thesaurus, right? Entry or thesaurus skills, right? It is where they give you the names, right? They give you the specific words and they list all the synonyms of that word. And the synonyms are either words that are the same or words that are almost the same, right? In meaning. And also when it comes to with a thesaurus entry, right? You have the word is given within the thesaurus entry. They tell you the part of speech, they tell you whether it's a noun, an adjective, a verb, an adverb, right? Or so on. They give you like a brief definition, right? They don't still go into detail of what the definition is, like a dictionary. So just give you like a brief definition of what the word is, and then they list all the synonyms that means or that is the same or almost the same as the word, right? And remember, if something is not familiar, then the other synonyms that is listed, right, will at least give you some form of idea or you'll have some form of understanding of what the thesaurus entry is based on the synonym. because it's usually either one or two of the words within that synonyms or the list of synonyms that you will be able to understand, and you will be familiar with that word as to what the meaning is of that word, or you'd have a proper understanding of what it is, right? All right. So we are doing a tutorial lesson on aplusstudents.ca, and our chapter is Thesaurus skills. And the lesson that we're doing is to use Thesaurus entries. And once again, a thesaurus, it lists synonyms, and synonyms are words with the same meaning, or it is words with almost the same meaning. That is a synonym. And once again, I said that if a word is not familiar, if you're not familiar with a specific word, right, that list of synonyms within that thesaurus can help you to understand that word better. Because, like I said, you'll either have one or two of the words of the list of synonyms that you will be able to familiarize yourself with. And you'll be like, oh, okay, so this is what it means, right? All right. Let us look at a few more examples of the sort of skills, and then we're going to our test. We need to look at this thesaurus entry, chronicle, right? And the part of the part of speech, it's a noun. So chronicle is a noun. And the definition of a chronicle is a record. It's a record. And usually, if you think of a record, right, if they say it's a record, you think of music, you think of a record label, right? That is what you'll think of. But now they're going to give us a list of synonyms. It says it's account, it is article, it is history, report, or story. And if you look at that list of synonyms, do you think record or a record has got anything to do with music? Right? So, no, it doesn't have anything to do with music, right? So, now the question is, where might you find a chronicle? So, a chronicle, it's a record, but now the words that are the same or almost the same as the word chronicle is account, article, history, reports, or stories. Where would you find accounts? Where will you find articles? History, things about history. Where will you find reports or stories, right? So all of these things you will find at a library, right? Which means that chronicle, which is a record, is not a record label, right? It is not a record label. It is to do with articles and stories. And these articles and stories and things about history you will find at a library. All right, we can also say at home. So if let's say your parent is loves reading, they are deep into history, and they are probably into academia also, they have written articles and stories and so on, then yes, you will also find it at home. But yes, you'll find it on the internet and you'll find it in the library. So well done. All right. If we look at the next one, it says yelp. Ooh, never heard of that word. Is it yelp? A yelp. And the part of speech is it's a verb. So this yelp, I don't know how to say the word, is a verb. And the definition of a yelp is to cry out. To cry out. And the synonym of the word is to cry, it is to howl, it is to shout or shriek, right? So, which might cause you to yelp? So, when you are stubbing your toe. So, if you maybe like knocking your toe, usually it's a pinky toe that knocks against something, right? And when you, let's say you're stubbing your toe against something, it is the most painful pain. It's like the pain that is going right through your whole body. And that is a yelp. It's like we are crying, you are howling, you are trying to shout, you are shrieking. To cry out, whether loud or softly. Right? All right, let's look at the last one and then we're going to our test. Listless. Listless. And it's an adjective. So listless is an adjective. Listless is without energy. And the synonyms of the word listless is to idle, to be inactive, or to be lazy. To idle, to be inactive, or to be lazy. That is what listless mean. And who would we most likely to be described as listless? I think I would describe myself as a listless person. Not the lazy part, just the idle, inactive type of being inactive. But they say somebody who you might think is listless is a person who is bored. So this person is not being entertained. This person don't want to be here anymore. So the person is bored, right? So it's not somebody who works long hours because somebody's long hours is just drained, they're just tired, they're exhausted. But somebody who's listless, right? You are described as lazy or idle, and usually a person who is bored is lazy and idle. All right. So a person who's bored, we can say that person is listless. They are lazy, they are idle. Right? All right, let's go to our test where we are going to use thesaurus entries. We need to look at this thesaurus entry, which is deduce. Right, so deduce. So if you've never heard of the word deduce, we are going to now look at the synonyms. So deduce is a verb, and the definition of deduce is to reason. And you think to yourself like, yo, I've never heard of the word deduce. To reason, how do you mean? Is it like an argument or something? It's to reason. Now, the list of synonyms. The synonyms or the words that is the same or almost the same as the word deduce is to conclude, it's to infer, it's to think, or to understand. That is deduce, to conclude, wrapping things up, to infer, to think about something, or to understand something. Right? So that is deduce. So you think, so, oh, okay, so I'm thinking about something, concluding something, understanding something. To reason, to understand, to conclude something. We are reasoning. So now the question is, which is the result if you deduce something? So if you deduce something, is it option one, you're winning an argument, or option two, you are figuring something out? So you're winning an argument, or you're trying to figure something out. You need to say what deduce means. To deduce something, to figure it out, or to win an argument. So deduce, it means to reason. So deduce, which is the result if you deduce something? Is it winning an argument or figuring something out? All right, and if we could say something that you deduce, we can say it is figuring something out, right? Because deducing is more trying to understand or to bring reason, right? Than to have an actual fight or winning a fight or winning an argument, right? All right, if we look at the word corrosive. So corrosive, I don't know if you've heard of the word corrosive already, but it is an adjective, tells us about the noun, modifies the noun, right? Describes the noun, corrosive. And the definition of corrosive means it is destructive. Corrosive means it is destructive. It is causing damage through a chemical process. Corrosive. Causing damage through a chemical process. And the synonyms of this word corrosive is abrasive, acidic, disintegrative, erosive, and wearing. All right, and corrosive. Now I want to know, what do corrosive substances do to metal? Does it break it down or does it bend metal? It says it is destructive, causing damage through a chemical process. The synonyms is abrasive, acidic, disintegrative, erosive, wearing. Something is acidic. What does it do? Does it break something down or bend it? All right. And if we were to choose or select the correct entry, right, that tells us what do corrosive substances do to metals, then we can say that it breaks the metal down. It breaks it down, right? Because it's not just bending it, it is breaking it. It is acidic. It is causing a destruction, right? Yes, so well done. Breaking is correct. To discard something. If you want to discard something, discard is a verb, it's an action that you're doing. Discard is to get rid of it, to get rid of something. And the synonyms of discard is to dispose of, it's like getting rid of something, to reject, like rid, which means to get rid of something, throw out, or it is trash. So discard is to get rid of something, dispose of, reject, rid, throw out, trash. And which might someone discard? What do you think somebody might discard? Is it an unneeded receipt or you discard a bad habit? An unneeded receipt, if you're done with the receipt, you don't need that receipt, I discard it. Or I can discard a bad habit. What is discard? All right. And discard. All right, so we can say discard is we can discard, get rid of an unnecessary receipt, right? Oh, Matthew. Matthew, we were talking about thesaurus entries or thesaurus skills. And we said when it comes to thesaurus skills, right? Thesaurus skills, they have the word that is given to us, the parts of speech, the definition of this thesaurus entry, right? And thesaurus entries, they list synonyms, words that are either the same or almost the same. Those are synonyms. So usually if you are given a word, but you don't know the word because the word is unfamiliar or it's not familiar, right? Then you can look at the list of synonyms, right? Because the list of synonyms will at least tell you, oh, okay, I know one of these words or two of the words, and that will basically kind of make you to understand what the meaning of that word is, right? So that is a thesaurus or thesaurus entries, right? All right, let's look at the last one. It is duplicate. Duplicate. And duplicate is a verb, right? And duplicate is to copy. If you want to copy something, it's a duplicate. And the synonyms of duplicate is double, remake, and to reproduce. So now we need to say which word, which would duplicate something. So which would duplicate something? Is it copying down a speech you're listening to or making a photocopy of a document? Copying a speech you are listening to or making a photocopy of a document. This is now where you duplicate something, you're making something double. Remember, if you're copying down a speech that you're listening to, you're going to write it in your own words, right? You're going to write it in your own words that make sense to you, which means that it's not a copy of what somebody said. It is more like paraphrase into your own words of what you can still remember of what someone said. But a duplicate, right, is a copy of a specific thing, right? It's a double of something, is to remake something. So which means that we can say a duplicate is making a photocopy of a document. Yes. All right. Well done, well done, well done, everybody. Right? All right. So basically, a thesaurus, once again, thesaurus entries or thesaurus skills, it basically gives us the word, right? And also lists synonyms. Lists synonyms. That is a thesaurus entry. Synonyms are words either with the same meaning or it's words with almost the same meaning. That is synonyms. And when it comes to thesaurus skills or thesaurus entries, if you are not familiar with a specific word, the list of synonyms will at least give you an idea of what you think you might know about what the word is, right? All right, so that is now the end of our lesson on thesaurus skills. Thank you very much for joining the class. Thank you very much for interacting. And I really hope that you do have a better understanding now of what thesaurus skills or thesaurus entries are, right? All right, so you should have a good evening further. Till next time. Goodbye.